Another thread in the fabric of complacency is where it feels like there aren't choices. Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jody.
I'm Elliot.
And this is, we're recording a little bit early because of the holidays, but at this point, by the time this episode comes out, it will be past the point where we're doing the drawing, which is actually tomorrow, but this episode will be in the past.
That
so
wasn't
I'm just
confusing
winding time around. Point being, tomorrow we are drawing names of all the prizes from the Facebook group. Anyone who's in the Facebook group by tomorrow will be in for the drawing. And there are shot glasses. So Here's My Story shot glasses, or not shot glasses, whiskey glasses.
Whiskey glasses.
And some gift cards and a bunch of other things. So that'll be fun.
Yep.
But we're going to announce them first in the Facebook group tomorrow. And then by our next episode, which will be on the 21st, we'll have that announcement here.
Yes, we will.
So let's hop into the episode.
Okay.
You got a story?
I do.
Okay.
So here's my story. As we've talked about, I had a pretty good year last year from a business standpoint. You know, we had a lot of interesting projects. We've worked with a lot of great clients. And from a financial point of view, it worked out really well. And that's great. But one of the things that I realized...
I love that this but is on its way.
There's a but. Because there's a price for everything, I think. When I went out with my team for our New Year's lunch, we were talking about, as you normally would, well, what are we doing in 2020? And it's not the first time we had that conversation, but we really started to focus on certain things that we could improve and what are we going to do differently. And at each time, what I found was there's this not small sense of complacency that has snuck into my thinking. So I think, we could really improve our business development efforts. And then I'm thinking, but, I like our clients, and I'm not sure I really want that many new clients. Oh, we could really build up the firm. We could bring on another lawyer, and we could do, but, I like the people I work with. Our team is great. We get along really well. And I'm not sure I want to do, but we could improve our systems they worked pretty well last year.
Yeah.
And all of that is true. All of those nagging voices of this worked well, and I like our clients and our team is great. All of that is true, but it makes me very nervous, and we're not going to follow that nagging voice, and we're going to keep moving forward, because it makes me nervous that there's this sense of comfort until there's not. And what it reminded me of is how relationship experts say that, you should really make a point of dating your spouse.
Right.
That there's a sense of
the
comfort.
Anti-complacency.
Yeah, there's a sense of comfort there, hopefully, and you have a solid relationship, but that doesn't mean that you stop trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what struck me as we're moving forward in 2020 is how I can keep the things I like and not change just for the sake of change, but not surrender to the complacency either.
Yeah. So there's two things here. I think the fear, if I were going to draw it out, like complacency is all the way over to one side, like on the left, and way on the other side, you have hustle and drive and improvement, those things that are crucial for entrepreneurship.
Right, the hunger.
That hunger. Somewhere in the middle, sometimes it feels dangerously close to complacency, is comfort. And you definitely want there to be comfort zone. I mean, you don't want to always be like chasing your next meal.
Right, or on the verge of a panic attack.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly not the goal of entrepreneurship. And I've argued many times over that you probably can't be a successful entrepreneur if you don't have that just constant hum of a drive to make things better or different, or that interest in, that fascination with gaps is how I think of it, is what drives people to be entrepreneurial. So you can't not have that part. But there's a couple things that you're bringing up that I think are fascinating. One, if you only ever have that part, you're never enjoying the fruits of your labor. If you can't find a way to sometimes be satisfied, I mean, there's another word we haven't thrown in there. There's complacency, there's comfort, there's being satisfied and content. Like being contented,
Okay.
I find as an entrepreneur, and I often see with my clients, and you're kind of hinting at it here, contentment feels dangerously like complacency, or can actually look like complacency. And that is often elicits like a fear response, because you're like, oh my gosh, but what if, but I'm fine right now, but what about in 4 months?
Well,
And
that's
what about
right.
it,
I think exactly what you said. I would shorten the sentence. Complacency or contentment does feel dangerous to me.
And it legitimately is. And yet, if you're not allowed to feel content, the answer is not always be aware of that you could be doing, always be dissatisfied. That's not the
That's not it. And you have to feel content or secure enough to, and we've talked about this before, to turn down work and to not scramble just for the next thing that comes in the door. And I have to take it because there's a sense of scarcity and panic if I turn something away. So you've got to be calm enough to do that. But when I find myself thinking, I really, I'm not sure I want to take on any more clients. That's crossing the line for me.
Well, that's a whole other, and we may jump into this now, but I do want to touch on a couple other things. Is you said, trust me, we're going to keep moving forward. But I think what you're tipping the hat to there is being very clear about what forward looks like for you. Like in this particular year, forward doesn't look like necessarily more clients or different clients. I don't know. You're a little bit aware of what it probably doesn't look like. You don't know what it does look like yet.
Right. So I think, for me, forward certainly doesn't mean I want to double the number of company names on my client list.
Yeah, no.
But forward to me does mean...
in some years, that may have been a goal.
In some years,
Absolutely.
yes, that definitely was the goal in some years past. This year, forward means still increasing the names on the client list, but just for a few, and clients that I really want to work with, and clients that enable me to do my best work. If I can find 2, 3, 4 of those, which doesn't sound like a large number because it's not, that to me is forward. Some great clients, and it's not volume.
As you improve on a thing, I think that when you're starting a company, I was just having this conversation with someone, it really behooves you to have that scrappy, resourceful hustle feeling. Like I know how to hustle. I know what to do when there's not enough work. I know how to get more work, or how to get a little job and then nurture it into more work with that client. Like those are skill sets that entrepreneurs have, and they hone really well. Then I think there comes a point where it looks more like refining and curating and tweaking. Like I don't just want more for more's sake. Now I'm, maybe I want more of this particular flavor, particular type. It becomes more of an art form, I think. Goal setting becomes more artistic than it is just these big swaths of more. But I also want to at least touch on 2 versions of this like ebb and flow of a thing. Years ago, I attended this workshop, and I'm going to see if hopefully by the time we're done recording, I can remember what it was called. But it had this block. It was made like a game. Oh, I think it was called A Bigger Game, playing a bigger game. And it was this grid of 9 things. And I think it was 9, whatever. It was this grid that you could use as a framework to coach people. And one of the squares, I think it was like the center one, was comfort zone. And interestingly, comfort zone very often gets sort of a bad rap. It's like, all good things are outside your comfort zone. That is not untrue in theory, but their process was very much that, you work and you work and you work to a thing, and then you be in your comfort zone until the first box that you would always move out of was like a new hunger would start to emerge. Like when you get itchy for something, or like a new itch or a new hunger or a new want, that's when, but respecting this flow, and I think is really important. I had this client who was really into, that's just a friend really, who was into numerology. And, whether you believe in it or not, I still think that the flow of it, the years, everything goes from like a year 1 to 9, and 1 through 4 is like a first phase. I might be getting some of this wrong. And then 5 through 9 is the second phase. And 9 is always like an ending year. And then 1 is like a fresh start year. And so it's just kind of this respecting the process of like you build, you achieve, you gain a thing. And then it's okay to sit with it for a little bit before you shift or move or try a new thing. But it does feel like dangerous to get complacent.
Yeah. And I think that if you talk about the flow or you think about the flow, I think at the beginning of your first number 1, it's pretty easy. The goal setting is pretty easy, right? So the result is to get clients. What you need to do is get clients, and the result is keep the lights on,
right?
And keep my people paid and pay my mortgage and all that stuff. I think that as we go toward number 9 or whatever it is, I think what happens is that goal setting becomes much more nuanced and much more strategic, so that you are looking for a new way. So we've talked a lot about, my teaching and writing, the online course and the speaking and the things that I do. And that really is an extension of my thought of, okay, well, let's drill down on what I do well, what I think is most impactful to the people that I want to serve. And how do I serve more people without just having them become clients and come in through the law firm? Is there another way that I can use the skills that I have and have the impact that I want, which is not through the traditional door that I set up in year 1? So that whether it's at the end of year 9 or whatever it is, that for me, the more nuanced goal setting is how I fight against complacency. I don't have to burn the thing down and rebuild it. I don't have to double in size.
No, because it's evolving. Have to do that stuff. Like there are parts of it you have outgrown, or not outgrown, but sometimes it's an outgrowing thing. Sometimes it's just all right, I kind of mastered that, or now I want a new challenge. And so what new shape, what new way do I want? And my version of that, actually, it's sort of a little bit like what you were just talking about. I find that I'm having this like itch to reach a lot more people, and whether that's speaking or through the podcast or whatever, but it does not feel like a want to work with 40 new clients. And so it's kind of so interesting. I'm like, okay, so what does that look like, Jody? I don't know, but I know what it doesn't look like. And for me, that's always the best. I'm better at deciding from not that, because I'm an option. Like I can imagine options till the cows come home. I can think of 42 new ideas. So that is not a good planning mechanism for me. But when I have a lot of options, sort of saying like, ooh, okay, not that and not that, sort of the sculptural chipping away at a thing till you get down to the shape.
Right. And part of it is not just, well, what do the clients need, or how can I reach more people with what I do? Part of the complacency that I think would start to drive me nuts after a while is if I kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. So part of being complacent would be, pretty much exactly what I did in 2019, I'm going to do in 2020. And that sentence just strikes a visceral chord with me. If somebody said, oh, so great, so you're going to do exactly the same thing in 2020 that you did in 2019, my immediate reaction would be to take umbrage with that, to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well, and I think the danger with we've talked about this before, but that standard, if you're not growing, you're dying. Well, if when growth is considered just more, the risk is if something is already feeling a little bit stale, or like, I did that already, just doing more of that, at least to me, still feels like doing the same thing. Like more doesn't feel like different. It just feels like more. And so finding ways to layer in evolving along with growing, I think is really important, because I think complacency comes with lack of evolution. I think like that's where I think you risk complacency, because I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, no, this is the size I want my business. One of my favorite shops I like to go to is this lovely little boutique, and they have expanded a little bit, and they took on the space beside them. And so it's bigger than it used to be, but I would be gutted if they, turn themselves into a Walmart. That's not who they are. It's not what I want them to be. It's not what they want to be. Deciding like this is the right size or shape or texture or feel of a thing is perfectly okay. But I think the complacency part comes when you stop trying. It's interesting. You made me think of something when you use the relationship metaphor, if you're not like dating your spouse. When I was doing this huge cultural project for a huge company, Fortune 150, and I was interviewing all these people, and they were talking about their, they use the language a lot, internal clients and external clients.
Sure.
So internal clients meaning who you work, with, and then external clients, obviously the clients. And there was a question that we were asking everyone, which was, do you think the culture of internal clients versus external clients is better? Which one, whatever. And this guy actually sort of used your metaphor, and he goes, he's like, I think our external focus is way better than our internal focus. It's like externally we're courting and dating people, and internally we're married. And my first thought was like, I'm sorry to anyone who marries you.
But you get what he means.
But I knew exactly what he meant. I joked with him about that. I was like, oh, I hope you're not married anyway. He goes, no. He's like, but internally, we're like linked to each other, so we don't have to try. And which was just fascinating to talk through. He's like, we can be mean and it doesn't matter because they can't go anywhere. And I was like, holy cow. So, but I want to dig into that bit of it, because I do think that is another thread in the fabric of complacency, is where it feels like there aren't choices. Like, oh, well, you're an indentured servant. You can't go anywhere. I don't have to really try to keep you around. Like if you personify that with the company, like if some part of your company just feels like a given.
Oh no, I'll personify that with the company. Let's talk about Comcast for a minute, shall we? I mean, so, and the way I see this is that I will see the advertisements and sometimes even get phone calls every once in a while from Comcast offering deals, but only to new customers. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I've been a customer for over a decade. Right. Oh, but you don't qualify for this.
Right.
And
we're
I know
just trying to get new dates.
We're just trying to get new dates.
Or I get irritated sometimes. Dropbox is bad about this, QuickBooks a little bit, where you're an existing customer, have been for years. If you have to go to their website for some reason to log, it is hard to find the login button. The only thing you can find are these giant buttons for try it out. Like, let us give you a demo. And I have to go like 4 layers to get to the login. I'm like, come on.
No, that's right. That's right. So there were a couple of things that I made a note of while you were talking. One, just a quick aside, when you were talking about the boutique you went to or you go to and you wouldn't want it to become a Walmart, I found myself kind of admonishing myself a little bit, because there's a really, really good Indian restaurant right down the road from SHMS Global.
It just so happens I am really hungry right now, so we can go there afterwards.
It's Spice Cafe. And so...
is this the one that's in the little strip across?
Yes, it's in the little strip.
It's good.
The store to each side of them has gone out of business. And so they expanded once. So they had 2 bays in the strip shopping center. So they expanded once. So they, now they have 3. And I walked in, I said to the owner, I said, oh, so are you expanding to the 4th? And she gave me this world weary look, and she's like, oh no. Oh no. Now it's always crowded. They could easily fill it. And
like,
as she said that,
enough.
Yeah, and she says, we love our business, but no,
it wouldn't feel the same.
And I really respected that. And I was a little bit irritated at myself for just assuming, well, there's an opportunity to grow. Then obviously you want to grow, and you can take over the entire strip shopping center. And I that was immediately the reaction that I had. Look how much you can grow,
right?
And when she said that, I was like, of course you're right. You have a sense of when that's not the goal.
Right. I think it's really important to put our glasses on and look really closely at complacency, because we can always tie it back to like, oh, maybe you don't want to grow. But I think it's more nuanced than that, because we've done whole episodes on that. So that certainly can be one piece of it. But I think complacency comes when you're taking something for granted, when some part of what is in your business feels like you don't have to try to keep it. I also think it comes when you're just not excited about a thing. I think for entrepreneurs, especially, you have to find something to be excited about. Like that is what lights your fire. That's what changes things. And in that way, I think if you're not growing, you're probably dying, because there's not like this drive to make something better. And if you can't get excited about treating your current clients extra well in some way, shape, or form, then I think that's not something to be ashamed about. It's just a thing to look at. Like maybe there's a shift in like which of your clients are you talk about who are your fist bump people, like who are you excited to hear from, and who are you like, oh, I don't want to talk to that person.
Right. Right. And so in the last couple minutes that we have left, I do want to touch on something that you were bumping up against, which is, you want to evolve. You don't necessarily want to just grow for the sake of growth, but it's not just the decision of the owner of the company. I think that, and this is what I wanted to ask you. What are your thoughts about communicating that with the team? Because I don't want to sit here and say, geez, I don't want to grow into a 40-lawyer firm. But if members of my team think our failure to add more and more attorneys means that our business is stagnating somehow.
Or if they're super excited to run a team of 12, like, right. and you didn't know that. I mean, my answer always is these should be conversations that you're having on a regular basis. I mean, it's a little bit like, if dating somebody for a really long time and getting married and then finding out one of you wants to have kids and the other one doesn't. Like, I think especially for your people who are helping you at the leadership level, those kinds of conversations should be constantly happening and allowed to change. I mean, you can maybe want to have kids at one point and then don't, or vice versa. So, I mean, keeping those updated. There was a time I remember thinking when I was first starting my business that 20 clients was like the perfect amount for me. If I could have 20 clients, because I'd made the spreadsheet. And it worked out on the spreadsheet. If
it's on the spreadsheet,
this many at this number, at this rate, then it would be this, and that'd be perfect. Well, I got to about, I think it was like 14 or something. And I didn't like how it felt. It was too many. And so now my perfect version is I have one or two I'm doing a lot with, and then I have lots of other little ones. I didn't want to just be working with one or two. But one last thing on that we spent a lot of time talking about complacency. But as we wrap here, I don't want to skip over the cognitive dissonance with contentment and comfort. That I think that much like that phrase that I know I've referenced before that I saw that minister say one time, like God loves you just the way you are and he loves you too much to let you stay that way. And it really rang true for me because that's how I feel about my clients a lot of times. But it's that dissonance of that friction of being able to be really content with a thing and like love it the way it is and appreciate it and be satisfied and nourished by what is, aka not constantly haunted by what you have not yet achieved. You have to have that basis, and then you earn the stability and the foundation and the right and the excitement to innovate on it and to evolve it and to make it into more. But I think if you're trying to evolve and innovate without that ability to stand on solid contentment and satisfaction, it's just always going to feel rocky and wiggly.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories.
You
can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us.
Which
is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.